What's up, everyone? It's a Knife Style here, and today I'm going to be talking about my knives that look like this so that my other knives can look like this. And I think that this is just going to be a little fun video out there, basically showing all the knives that I have pretty much ruined while sharpening or disassembling them. And so I think it'd be fun if you guys also shared your stories in the comment section, just because there's probably a lot of newbies out there who scratched up their knife and then they feel really bad about it. So maybe this will help them feel a little bit better. So yeah, if you look at this Boker Kalashnikov, this was my practice sharpening knife here. And you can see all those scratches right there. This one I got the Work Sharp guided sharpening system. And one thing about that system is there is a little angle guide that I would use. And what would happen is you would set your knife on the angle guide, and then a little corner of the stone would just stick out slightly from that angle guide. So when you would take your knife off the angle guide onto the stone, that stone would basically just scratch up that little spot right there, and it looks horrible. And it's just one of those things where I think that if you get the Work Sharp guided system, you honestly might just want to start without using the angle guides, or you could place the knife on the stone first and then bring it back to the angle guide and then go on with the rest of your sharpening stroke. So for the next knife, oh yeah, this one is one that was probably my first real knife, or not first real knife, but first knife that was very nice, the Spyderco PM2. And Spyderco's, I've always had trouble getting this little sharpening part right there. And as I showed you on my Spyderco Sage, a knife that I actually did a good job sharpening. Where is it? You see that, like that little light reflection difference, like my more polished edge compared to that factory edge. And I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but right towards that plunge grind. And so it's one of those things where Spydercos are pretty difficult to sharpen for new people, because you either sharpen like this and bang that ricasso on your stone, or you basically go like this, and then it kind of just looks weird with the scratch pattern. But also with this PM2, this was the knife that taught me, it taught me that I needed nicer screws than $5 or a whole set of $5 screws off Amazon. It taught me that I needed these Weehaw bits, because if you look at this pivot screw, that thing has just probably been stripped over 20 times. Just me, I don't even know what I was doing with that, but you can see a scratch there too, where I was trying to just loosen that, or loosen or tighten the pivot. I have no clue what I was doing, and I just completely slipped off of there and put a huge scratch in this PM2. So I've actually thought about, with this knife, you know, maybe trying to pimp it out, get a regrind with some aftermarket scales and maybe some bronze titanium hardware. I really don't know if I'm gonna do it, just because the PM2 isn't one of my favorite knives, just the whole style of it. I just prefer the Para 3 or the Sage 5 just a little bit more. And so I still don't really know what I'm gonna do, but yeah, a PM2 getting destroyed like that. And then the next one, I'll pull out the ones that I have done an acid etch finish on, and this was because I scratched them up pretty bad. So if you have a knife that is pretty scratched up, I would suggest either going the budget way, maybe doing this acid etch stonewash finish on it. I have a video on that. Or going maybe trying to get a regrind on it, because that'll remove all the scratches too, but regrinds can get kind of pricey. So the first one on the left, the CGRB Centros, and I did a splatter paint acid etch finish on this. If you want to go see that video, it's one of my more recent ones, so feel free to check that one out. But I think that the finish looks good, but the reason I did it is because I have this like $3 Harbor Freight stone, and you know, I wanted to do a video, how good is a $3 stone, because I figured that it would be a good video. But that was before I really even knew how to freehand sharpen, so I was just kind of running the knife like this across the stone, and I actually did get a sharp edge on it, but I did scratch up this knife very bad towards the base here, towards the tip, and so that's why I used this knife to practice this splatter paint acid etch finish. So for the next one, this CRKT Pete, I actually scratched this once again on my Work Sharp, doing the same thing, where that corner of the stone would rub against my knife. And so I was like, well, I got nothing better to do with my time. So I got out a diamond stone. It's actually a Work Sharp diamond stone. And I laid the primary bevel on it, which, if you guys don't know, this sharpened kind of shiny looking portion, and that's the secondary bevel. The primary bevel is basically any room on the knife that isn't that or isn't this flat here, basically how it gets from the thick part to the thin part. So what I did, I laid that primary grind on there and just went back and forth, kind of like convexing the edge, even though I had no clue what I was doing. And there were just so many deep scratches in there, and it didn't look that bad, but actually the acid etch stonewash finish made those all non-noticeable, or you don't notice them at all. So that's a cool thing. The acid etch stonewash finish is very forgiving, but this was actually my practice acid etch knife, and so as you can see, I did not do a very good job. I basically put that fingernail polish way too much when all you really need to do is put it where the washers go and where the detent track goes and where the tang of the lock. And so, oh, and also this little part right here, I bet you're wondering what that was. That was actually pretty recent when I did that. And I was wondering, because when I sharpen, I feel like I'm a lot more dominant on this side. I'm getting better at going from this side, but I just felt like I was a lot more dominant like this. And so I was like, well, what if I switch to left-handed? Because some sharpeners out there, like Big Brown Bear, he suggests to go left-handed. And I tried it, and I actually was holding a pretty steady angle, but probably like 4 or 5 degrees too low of that actual bevel. So I scratched up that acid etch finish pretty bad. But for the next one, the Spyderco PM2, this is a knife that, once again, the Harbor Freight Stone, the destroyer of worlds. I had no clue how to freehand sharpen whatsoever. This is one of my first knives. I got it almost as soon as the PM2 lightweight actually came out. I actually pre-ordered it, and I just set that thing on my stone, just the whole primary grind of it, and just did a stroke like that. I don't even think I hit that secondary bevel, and it just left huge deep scratches all over it. So I did an acid etch finish, and overall I think this knife turned out good. It's just I'd probably just rather have the stock version, just because I could sell that, I could use it. I like using a satin blade a lot more than I like using acid etch finish blade, because as you can see there, those are cardboard marks, and in order to get those off, you can I pretty much just use either water and a rag, or a rag and rubbing alcohol. You can just use your fingernail, but if you scratch this with your fingernail, you will cringe on so many levels, and I just can't do it, especially because I have small fingernails. So I just usually grab this rag here and just scrub it with my thumb, and that's why I like satin finishes and stonewash finishes, because that comes off very easily, all the marks from tape or cardboard or whatever you're doing. So the next ones that I'll show you, this Swiss Army knife right here, it has it's got those scratches like that right there, and it's got some horizontal scratches where I tried to get that out with sandpaper. I'd probably have to go to a really low grit, because these are probably scratches from like a 220 grit sharpening stone. So I probably need to go a really low sandpaper grit, and then just kind of work it all the way from there up to the grit that I want. And I probably will eventually do that. I just don't really feel like doing it right now. And the Swiss Army knife, I just want to make an announcement, I guess. This is a pretty hard knife to sharpen. One, you can't be putting too much pressure on this blade, because if you can, it can wobble back and forth, and that can't be good in sharpening. So this blade is also very skinny. You know, it's skinnier than my finger pressed up on it, so it's just kind of difficult to control when sharpening. And yeah, so the next one I'm going to show you guys is, a lot of times I will scratch up this little side of the blade here. This was a RIT dyed finish on my CGRB mini feldspar, and when I was basically running that on the stone, I hit it on that stone a little bit. And I've seen some knives like Benchmade 940s that have chunks of carbon fiber just taken out of them from people just scratching on that, and oh, that'd be bad. I really haven't had anything that bad, but I have had an issue like on my ProTech. As you can see right there, I just scratched a little bit of aluminum off there. Not that big of a deal, but it still happened. So what more knives can I show you guys? Here's one that I actually just worked on yesterday, and this wasn't a sharpening mistake. I actually saw rust on this CIVI, what's the name of this? It's not the Backlash. Why am I forgetting this name? CIVI Shredder. Yes, that's the name. So there was a little bit of rust on it, because I honestly have not carried this knife in a super long time, and so it has just been sitting in my house. I guess because of humidity, I developed a little bit of rust that I couldn't get off with just a simple alcohol wipe, and so I took my rust eraser to it, and for some reason, I guess I should have used my rust eraser completely soaked in water, and it kind of left some scratches on the satin finish because those rust erasers are meant to clean ceramic stones, so there's just a little bit of grit to them. So what I did, I basically just stonewashed this blade. Sorry, it's not showing up very well in my lighting. Let me just clean it off. I stonewashed this blade here. And oh yeah, there's a good shot of it. So it looks kind of crystallized there, and it actually kind of knocked down this hole because that was a complaint with the shredders, that the hole was just a little bit too sharp, and I agree with that. And so this knocked it down, and I think that it works very well now. And I was planning on having this knife as a giveaway knife, and so I think I still will because I kind of like the way that that stonewash finish looks. And so they're just, oh, I don't know if I showed this one or not. No, I don't think I did. So this is my second run of this video. And here is my CIVI Backlash CIVI Elementum in Damascus, not Damaclash. I was about to say that. And look at those scratches right there. That's once again from the work sharp. And yeah, those just look pretty bad on there. And scratches on Damascus are no bueno. I could just, if I got a Chris Reeve knife in Damascus and I scratched it, that would be bad. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharpening this in single blade. I'll probably make a video on it. It's not dull yet, but blade shapes like this are just so nice to sharpen because you don't really have to worry about raising up your elbow when you're trying to reach the belly and then the tip. It's just very easy to sharpen. And I will be nervous when sharpening it because it's a $500 knife, but it still is one of those things that I'm looking forward to doing. So that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please share down below your story, so maybe if someone's new and they feel bad about messing up one of their knives, they'll read it and feel better about themselves. Or maybe it's just me who's just really bad at starting sharpening, and so I just messed up everything. But that's going to do it for the video. Let's get a quick cut test on camera. A little bit of an S cut from this knife. It is very sharp. Those are my notes from my Chris Reeve Spinza 21 versus 31 comparison. If you want to go check that out, that's my most recent upload video right behind this one, I guess. And so that's going to do it for the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.